Hello. Hello. It's working. Mic check. Hello, welcome to the second part of section 3. Our first talk of this part is called Remarkable Inequalities and Operational Research Applicability, and it is given by Ștefan Chipulescu and Ștefan Mina. Please.
We don't need to take the mics, right? We can speak freely without the mics.
No, you have to grab a mic.
Grab a mic.
Okay. We'd like to introduce us. My name is Mina Ștefan Gabriel, and my partner here is
Ștefan Chipulescu.
And we'd like to welcome you to the world of inequalities.
Immediate.
Okay. Our main idea is that inequalities are a very important part of mathematics in theoretical and applicability, and we'd like to teach you about these things on our presentation. As we said in the abstract, our presentation explores how mathematical inequalities significantly impact various engineering and scientific fields. And as keywords, we have mathematical inequalities, Bernoulli's, Minkowski's, and Tito Andreescu's inequalities in optimization, resource allocation, and efficiency graphs. At the next slide, we have the content, which concludes introduction. We have three of some famous inequalities: Jacob Bernoulli's, Hermann Minkowski's, and Tito Andreescu's. Applications of inequalities, conclusions, and by bibliography. Introduction. We like to introduce you sort of Q&A. Why did you choose this subject? First of all, inequalities are a fundamental aspect of mathematics, sources of inspiration for new theorems and applications. And as a story, we both went to the same high school, and our teachers didn't tell us that inequalities are such an important part of mathematics. And when our teachers from university told us to make a presentation about inequalities, we were so happy that we concluded in just 3 days and we made up this presentation.
Okay, so why these inequalities? Well, we can argue that through various interpretations and operations, all mathematical inequalities are somewhat related to one another. And having that in mind, we thought we aim to focus on results with strong identities and wide-ranging applications. And thus, our main goal was to find the balance between unity and diversity. And how do we apply them? Well, we'll see in a bit.
In our first part, we have these remarkable inequalities, 3 of a number, which concludes arithmetical mean, quadratic mean, geometrical mean, and sort of story. We use them in middle school. Then we have the exponential and the straight x plus 1, which is shown in the graph there. We have the exponential with the red dot and the straight with the blue one. We can see that for every x, including in R, we have this inequality. And in faculty, we learned that arctangent of x less equals x for every x that is greater or equal to 0, as shown in the graph on Desmos.
Okay, now we're going to talk about Jacob Bernoulli for a little bit. He was a remarkable mathematician coming from a celebrated Swiss family. He is credited with discovering the Euler number E while exploring compound interest. He's worked in probability theory, notably in his work Conjectandi, are still relevant in modern statistics. He also was an early adopter of integral calculus. His career was marked by a strong rivalry with his brother Johann, fueled by professional jealousy. So now we'll talk about Bernoulli's inequality, which stands as a significant contribution from the Swiss mathematician. It it provides a fundamental tool in understanding the relationship. Sorry. Yeah, it provides a fundamental tool to understand the relationship between powers of 1 plus x and linear terms involving x. So we can see the inequality being holding true here for a varying number n. So Bernoulli's saw its importance in exponential and polynomial problems, and we can demonstrate this inequality through mathematical induction when n is an integer, and for real numbers n, it is established using properties of derivable functions. And its power and versatility are also obvious. If we make this simple substitution, x is x minus 1, and by applying the inequality, we will get the well-known inequality of means. So another application of the Bernoulli inequality is in demonstrating mathematical limits of sequences. So let's consider a straightforward example. First, we have to define the nth root of a number as a solution to the equation x to the power of n equals a. And the existence of this solution can be shown by using either differentiable inverse functions, which is kind of boring, or we can use the more interesting Babylonian method of extracting roots. And it implies an algorithm starting from an initial guess, a value we estimate as a solution, and the closer this value is to the actual root, the more accurately we will obtain the outcome in a set number of steps. And what's interesting is that regardless of the initial guess, the sequence of operations will always lead to the exact root, a fact supported through inequalities. So, okay, enough about Babylonians. And as we read the slide say, let's get back to our sheep. So then touch on our little step. If we define the nth root like this, and then a sequence xn defined like this, then we can apply Bernoulli's inequality. And in a few number of steps, if we take separately the cases where a is greater or less than 1, then we get that the sequence approaches 0, and thus the nth root of a will always approach 1. So this underlines the power of Bernoulli's inequality in establishing mathematical limits.
Furthermore, we have Hermann Minkowski, which was a Polish mathematician born on 22nd June 1864 and deceased on 12th January 1909. He was a professor at Königsberg, Zurich, and Göttingen, and he is known for geometry of numbers, Minkowski diagram, and Minkowski space. Although his family is originally from Poland, they needed to run from the Russian persecution and ended up in Germany, where he met Albert Einstein. He was his pupil, and then they collaborated on various themes, but they didn't succeed in any of them. He won at the age of 19 the award of mathematics for the French Academy of Sciences, and his name even reached the space by 12493 Minkowski, which is in the galaxy. And M matrices, they are named after him. We have the general form of Minkowski inequalities shown on the whiteboard, and then we have the equality when b equals to 1. What's more interesting, if we take the particular case where b equals to 2, we'll have the square root shown. And if we take both sides and raise to the second power, we'll have the radicals simplified, and in the end we'll have the sum on the left side, and we have two cases. If the sum on the left side is less than 0, the inequality proves itself because the right part is always positive. And if the left side is greater or less than 0, then we will have the Cauchy-Bunyakovsky-Schwarz inequality, which my friend here will talk about later.
Tito Andreescu was born in 1956 and is a Romanian mathematician known for his involvement in international mathematical Olympiads. He became the coach of the Romanian team at just 20 years old, and feeling oppressed by the communist regime, he emigrated to the USA after 1989. And just 5 years later, in Hong Kong, the United States team, led by Tito Andreescu, achieved first place with 252 points, a perfect score which has yet to be matched in the history of math Olympiads. So I believe everyone in this room has heard of the Cauchy-Bunyakovsky-Schwarz inequality at least once, and I really hope I'm not the only one who thought it was just one guy with a really long name, like Mr. Cauchy-Bunyakovsky-Schwarz. No, in fact, it was 3 mathematicians throughout the 19th century. So Augustin Cauchy formulated this inequality in the context of sums of products for real numbers. Then Victor Bunyakovsky extended this inequality to integrals. And finally, Hermann Schwarz provided a rigorous proof and further generalized the inequality. But Tito Andreescu wanted more from this. He saw something special. So this is where he shines. So by making this clever substitution in the inequality, then we get this modified form of CBS, and eventually the desired result, Tito Andreescu's inequality. So we'll also consider the particular case where n equals 3, because this is the most commonly found form in math problems and all of these applications, and we'll also need it a bit later. And one interesting thing is that if we recall the definition of convex functions, then we can derive from this inequality functional inequality, which is used in interesting fields such as game theory, where the payoff function is usually convex. So now we'll consider a small scenario. We have a nuclear power plant which works with 3 departments: safety, maintenance, and operations, and a total budget of 1 million lei, which needs to be divided among the 3 departments. Budgets B1, B2, and B3. Naturally, these departments aren't 100% cost efficient, so there will be some budget losses, P1, P2, and P3. And we can describe these losses per unit of budget through a simple theoretical law that is more than satisfactory for this situation, where the unit of budget is 1 million lei for simplicity, and K1, K2, and K3 are inefficiency constants specific to each department. So now that we have these parameters and the constraint of the sum of budgets being 1 million, we need to see how we can distribute the resources in the most efficient way so that the total loss is minimum, P1 plus P2 plus P3. So, surprise, surprise, we'll use Tito Andreescu's inequality, but by summing the squares of the losses. So now on the numerator will be the efficiency constants, and the denominator will be budgets, and we get this left-hand side that we know as determined values from the hypothesis. So having a well-determined value on the right side, we get a lower bound for the initial sum, and that is great because now to get a minimum loss, we have to make those 2 sides equal. So looking back at the Cauchy-Bunyakovsky-Schwarz inequality, we know that equality happens when the 2 vectors involved are linearly dependent. So that means that they are proportional to each other. Knowing that Tito Andreescu's inequality is a particular case of CBS, then the same rule applies here. So that means the budgets, the inefficiency constants will be proportional to the budgets by a common constant lambda. And so if we express the budgets in terms of k and lambda, then introduce it to the limit equality, then with a few steps we'll get that lambda equals k1 plus k2 plus k3. And so we get the budgets the optimal budgets for minimum loss, which all add up to 1 unit, so 1 million, and the minimum loss of about 620,000 lei, which is kind of a lot, like more than half of the budget. But it's true, and to show that, I want to illustrate an animation. But first, let's explain what's happening here. So on the left-hand side, we have three equations that all resemble the total loss, where x on the first equation, like under the first square root, is the budget allocated to the first department, which varies across the horizontal axis, and which varies in time, corresponds to the second term, so that is the second budget, and the third one is obviously the budget for the third department, knowing that the sum of all three must be 1 unit. So we could say we have a 3D graph, but the third axis not being spatial, but being time. And the next two equations are actually the same thing, but with x and n in swapped positions across the three departments. And finally, I marked in red the lower limit of the loss that we calculated earlier, like 620,000 lei. And as you can see, the curves generally follow the same path and usually stay above this line, with a few exceptions at some points where the line is slightly exceeded. And this likely happens because Tito Andreescu's inequality isn't particularly strong and strict. It just offers a general and usually satisfactory overview of optimization problems.
Now that we've talked about the theoretical part of inequalities, we now go to the applications of inequalities. First of all, in the chronological order, we have Bernoulli, which had a powerful impact on mathematical analysis, string boundaries, probability theory, numerical methods, and statistical mechanics. Then, furthermore, we have Minkowski, which made two powerful impacts on two sides of our work: code analysis, minimum distance limit, packing bound, error correction codes, and decoding complexity. What's more important, decoding is very sophisticated and needs to be contained by the Minkowski's inequality. And signal theory in signal processing, filter design, signal compression, and signal reconstruction. Signal reconstruction is very hard because you need to take the amount of data that you are given and then find a way to reconstruct the minimum loss of data that you have and still give the full info out of the signal. And the last one is Andreescu, which made a powerful impact on optimization in engineering, economy, and programming. And for conclusions, we have that inequalities are a very strong weapon in mathematics and we need to use them very often. Are essential tools in science. They set limits and constraints, like I said before, and stability assessment and optimization methods shown before.
And the limit cases, equalities, describe the equilibrium conditions that theoretical models aim to achieve, where theoretical models aim to achieve precise outcomes applicable in practical scenarios. So now, if we take a step back and maybe contemplate on the nature of universe, we are left to ponder: is it governed by perfect balance, equalities, or is it defined by fundamental asymmetries, inequalities? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting talk. Are there any questions from the audience? No? Thank you very much. Our next talk is entitled Study of the Eigenvalues of Sturm-Liouville Problems Under Perturbations, and it is given by Octavia Maria Hapenchuk from the Transylvania University of Brasov.
Hello. coordinator, Professor Marin from Transylvania University of Russia. We studied the solution of Sturm-Liouville problems under perturbations. This is we continued the study we studied this problem for 2 years, and this is the final part of our study, and from next year we will be specializing in continuous mechanics. This is the table of contents. Sorry, I don't know how to go back. Okay. Okay. So we consider the regular Sturm-Liouville equation known well in the literature, and it is given here by relation 1.1. Also, we have to notice that the coefficient functions p, r, and q are integrable functions on the interval I. And also for the first part of the presentation, we will consider the boundary conditions in matrix form given by relation 1.3. And sorry. In order to characterize the eigenvalues, we need to consider two matrices, P and R, given by relation 2.1. And with these matrices, we can construct the initial value problem that we are going to solve using the characteristic function delta. Given by lemma 2.1, we know that this characteristic function is continuous, well-defined, and it is an entire function of lambda. Next, we have to, in order to solve this problem, a complex number lambda is an eigenvalue of the problem if delta of lambda is 0. This is a well-known result. And from the previous two lemmas, we get the lemma 2.3, which gives us the 4 cases in which the eigenvalues are. First, there are no complex eigenvalues. Every complex number is an eigenvalue. There's a finite number of eigenvalues, or there's an infinite but countable number of eigenvalues of complex eigenvalues with no accumulation point in C. In order to simplify the discussion, we consider two types of boundary conditions, coupled boundary conditions and separated boundary conditions, and the lemmas are proven almost the same, so we consider here the separated boundary conditions. So the separated boundary conditions are given by relation 2.4, then by elementary calculus we obtain this delta of lambda. For a practical problem, we consider the well-known equation of the displacement of a violin string of length pi. This is the well-known equation. We have to know the boundary conditions and the initial conditions. These are also well-known. And we solve the equation. We got those results. And what we tried here is to modify the boundary conditions and see how the solutions of the problem change when we modify the boundary conditions. First of all, we consider this the same equation with matrix boundary conditions, and we apply the lemmas that we obtained for coupled boundary conditions. And we consider some special cases. These are only some of the cases that we consider in our calculations. First, we have C equals minus D, which means that delta of lambda is a constant independent of lambda, and of course, if this constant is 0, then every complex number is an eigenvalue, or if this constant is not 0, then we have no eigenvalues. Also, for C is different from minus D, we have a characteristic equation that we calculated, and also we have here two cases. The first case, when C equals I equals minus D, we have those eigenvalues, and if C equals 1 equals C, we have the semi-periodic self-adjoint case with the well-known eigenvalues. In order to present the main result of this project, we need a space of boundary value problems given by capital omega. Given by relation 3.1, where we have to notice here that the conditions are less restrictive. P, Q, and R have to be locally integrable on the interval I. And in order to compare two different problems, we need to compare the spectrum of these problems. And to do that, we need a Banach space and a norm. Also, for the continuity of eigenvalues, so we are preparing for the main theorem of this project, we consider a sturdy problem the same that we considered before, with separated boundary conditions, and here we have to notice that the coefficient functions p and r have to be positive almost everywhere on interval I. So this is the main result. It's not a fully original result. It's a result that I compiled from different sources, and me together with my professor gave a different proof based on the Green's function of the integral operator, that is the inverse operator of the differential operator associated with the Sturm-Liouville problem. So the theorem states that if we have an element omega 0, an element of omega. Lambda of omega 0 is an eigenvalue of the problem that we stated before. Then for any positive epsilon, there exists a positive delta, such if omega satisfies the relation 4.5, then omega has an eigenvalue that satisfies relation 4.6, and that's the continuous dependence of the solutions. And like I said, there are different proofs, some using the initial value problem that we stated before, and one that we used using the Green's function. Also, starting from the results of Kosovsky, we generalized some of the results that this author presented. Also, we tried to obtain the best boundary for the relative error of the eigenvalues, which for now we have we have the one with the spectral radius. Hopefully, we can find a better margin, but now that's all that we have. So we consider the set D of the solution of this problem. The problem is the same that we considered before. We also consider two differential operators in relation 5.2, I'm sorry. And we denote lambda k the eigenvalues of the first problem, and tilde lambda k the eigenvalues of the second problem. And starting from this, we have the theorem 5.1, which states that if the difference between the norm, the infinite norm of the difference between the potential functions is less than epsilon, then the absolute value of the difference between the eigenvalues is also less than epsilon. We also have a corollary that states that if a function depends on a parameter p with a constant with a Lipschitz constant c, then the difference between the eigenvalues depend on the same parameter with the same Lipschitz constant. Also, if we consider from now on that L is a positive operator, we know that it is a positive operator that has a smallest positive eigenvalue. So from now on, we consider this, and we have two lemmas. Lemma 4.1, which gives us an estimate of the operator relative error using the inverse of the differential operator, which I said is an integral operator that is compact, so it's bounded, so the norm makes sense. And also the best approximation that we have so far is using the spectral radius of the same operators, the inverse of L and F. So in order to see that the last theorem gives us the best result, we perturbed a very simple differential operator to operator tilde L with this potential function, and indeed we obtained that the column with the spectral radius gives us the best approximation. We also have some application that in which I use Python and MATLAB for the numerical computations using finite difference method. Here we have the Schrödinger equation for the harmonic oscillator, which we know the form, and using Python, I graphically represented the eigenvalues for the potential, for the first potential and the perturbed potential. The potential function was Q. And here with red I have the perturbed potential, and with blue the initial potential. I don't know if the colors are well seen on the projector. Okay. Also, for this problem, I perturbed the function q linearly with the factor 0.5, which means that the epsilon that we are going to take is maximum 0.5, and here we can see also in Python that the difference between the eigenvalues is less than 0.5 in all of the first 10 cases. Of course, the rest are the same. We also have the eigenfunctions. It is very important to note that we had to use the infinite norm, because if we use the L2 norm, this result won't work. We see there in the table that the difference between the eigenvalues is bigger than the difference between the potential functions. And we have to apply the problems. Let's say we have a structural dynamics problem. We consider that Sturm-Liouville equation of string of length L. E is the modulus of elasticity, I is the second moment of area, rho is the density, and lambda represent the frequencies. And for this numerical example, we consider the steel string that has a density of 7.85 grams per cubic centimeter, and we perturb it linearly. So we consider that this string does not have a constant density, and we perturb it linearly again with the factor of 0.5. We obtain the eigenvalues using MATLAB. Sorry, the difference between the eigenvalues that do not exceed 0.5 and the eigenvalues here, the eigenvalues are very big, so the difference between them is not shown, but it is a difference, a small difference. Okay, also the eigenfunctions. And the last example is an example in geophysics. I researched some article in geophysics about seismic wave propagation, and everyone complained that, of course, the parameters of the Earth are not constant, so we need to see if we perturb the coefficient of the equations that they use, how they can control the stability of the solutions. So here we consider this differential equation. P is the elasticity, Q is the potential function, as we said before, and W is the density of the medium. We considered the Earth having a layered model, as we know, the crust, the mantle, and the core. And of course, the material properties that are well known for all the layers of the Earth. And using Python again, we compare the eigenvalues. So it looks like a very big difference, but it's not, because the scale is very, very low. So the eigenvalues are very close to each other actually. The orange one is the perturbed one, and the blue is the initial potential. And also we have here the difference between the eigenvalues that does not exceed our epsilon, which is 0.1, and also the initial eigenvalues, the perturbed eigenvalues, and the difference between them calculated in Python. And that's the paper. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? If not, I have a small question. So you basically use the inverse of L and F.
Yes.
Do you hope or plan to search for an even better boundary?
Yes,
Future?
I tried an even better boundary. I found an idea on an article, of course, for a better boundary using the first eigenvalue because of the inverse operator, because the eigenvalues of the inverse operator are the inverses of the eigenvalues of the differential operator.
Okay.
So the first is the biggest if we order them. So I tried that one, but I found some examples in which it doesn't work. So maybe I need to add some restrictions, yes, in order to make it work. For now on, it's a work in progress.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next talk is called Mastering the Next Wave of Malware, an educational framework for ransomware, and it is given by Eduard Stefan Sandu. from the National University of Science and Technology for Technical Bucharest.
Hello everyone. Today we'll talk about ransomware. I had an idea to increase the success rate of an attack with a ransomware. Today I present it. Oh, sorry. All of us we know what is a ransomware. An illegal software who can use and encrypt some of data from our computer. The ransom the payment is demanded in the Bitcoin, the currency. The attacker can be anonymous. Here we have the stages, classic stages of the ransomware. The distribution stage with the propagation. After the propagation, we will infest the target. After infest, we'll have a communication channel with the server. Then we'll encrypt the files. After we'll have the ransom. And for optional stage is decryption. Decryption is not is optional because some attackers in history don't provide it the keys, private and public keys, above private for decryption. Oops. Sorry. So now my idea was to sorry, I am nervous. Sorry. My idea was to build a DLL where I put a ransomware in it and provide it through the online games on a private servers. Uh, for build the DLL, we'll use the classic functions with the classic functions. Open process function, virtual alloc, write process memory, and create remote read. We need that to build the DLL, and after the DLL is built, we need to use a load library function to run with the executable not executable with the game. So private servers are not safe. Yeah, are not safe because someone could have bad intentions. So after we build the DLL, we will build the server, we'll run the server, we'll start the server and get some players on it. After some time, we'll update the server with an event, and after the players will pack down the update, we can provide the infected DLL and run. And after all players run the new update, will be infected. So the ransomware could execute his commands after the player execute the update, or when I'll give some instructions where to infect. The conclusions: private servers are not safe, and we need to be sure what to download, what to run. We need to take. We need to watch over the DLL. The DLL is a portable executable, and we can see the header or other components to see if something is wrong or not. Thank you. Question?
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes, please.
Hi, great stuff, very informative. Usually when you download something from the internet or malware, it gets rejected for download if it detects that it's a malware. So in this case, ransomware. For example, if I go to a custom CSGO map and I download your DLL, won't it be rejected automatically, or do you plan to add some feature so that it doesn't get rejected?
The project is not finished. I tested, and after I downloaded the antivirus just rejected it. I'm watching how to hide the code in the DLL, and just to make and all the instructions give from the command and command server, CNC server.
Okay, so the malware is actually not on the but on the server.
Not all in DLL.
Okay.
Not the encryption, decryption, ransom, node instructions, just a little part of it. But it's detected. I'm working on it. But it's a good idea to attack from private servers or cracked games because the impact will be better than WannaCry. We have a lot of gamers who play not on the original game, and we can have a lot of victims.
You're very nice. You're very kind.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Our next talk is entitled Simulation Models for Strategic Decision Making, Games, Military versus Civil. And it is given by Sorana Elisa Poltărețu and Robert Mihai Tivoda under the coordination of Professor Toma and Professor Ebenciu from the National University of Science and Technology Polytechnica Bucharest.
Good afternoon, my name is Sorana Eliza Bărtărețu,
And my name is Robert Pivo Mihai.
and today we are going to present our work, which is entitled The Simulation Models for Strategic Decision Making, Games, Military versus Civil. Our work is structured by 4 parts. First, we are going to discuss some important aspects about the global games, then we will move on to the differential games. Finally, we have the conclusions and then the bibliography. Now, let's go to the first part of this presentation, which is concentrate on the global games. These are global games are a class of strategic games where we have 2 players who need to allocate their resources in order to gain or to minimize the loss from the engagements of the targets. And then here we have an example of a global game. The setup is the following. We have 2 players, which one is a defender and the other one is the attacker, each with strategic resources A and B. The targets are multiple and we index by K. And the goal for the defender is to maximize target efficiency and effectiveness. And for the attacker and is to destroy the targets. The characteristic function is V of S, which describes the value of the system if the subset S of the target is held. V of S reflects the system's effectiveness based on the targets that survive. This scenario is treated as a zero-sum game where the defender and the attacker allocate their resources across the targets. As you can see, we have X, um, um, which is the allocation of the resources by the defender, and the Y, which is the allocation by the attacker. The outcome function is the probability that target J is retained by the defender and is given by the function F J of X J A J. The expected effectiveness of the surviving target is represented by that equation, and the defender payoff is the sum of the previous equation over or the function v of x, and assuming that the characteristic function is additive, the function v of s is the sum of the effectiveness of the targets. On the battle models, we use the outcome function, um, which is f of x and y, where I indicates target defensibility, while M reflects the importance of force size differences. The value solution, the P from 1 to n is the value of P, and is defined for all I which are natural by that formula, and assuming that the outcome function at target k is the previous function. If both sides have optimal proof strategies, they are proportional to the value of the game.
Now we move on to the second part, which is differential games, and more specifically using the Lancaster equations to solve differential games. In order to help us wait, something is wrong. How do I? No, this is просто don't spot it.
Scroll wheel. Scroll wheel.
Ah, merci. Now we will extend these equations to mixed forces like infantry and artillery, which presents allocation challenges, and now we need to determine how we can allocate those resources effectively. Typically, forces are divided in fixed proportions, but a clever opponent may exploit this by concentrating on one target at a time. Studies such as Weiss's in the late 1950s consider fire allocation as a differential game where artillery can target both enemy artillery and ground forces. Now we will move on to the main goal of the Lancaster model, which is to help strategists determine whether or not to commit more troops into a battle by following the next few steps. First off, we have the analysis of decision to deploy more soldiers initially, where, for example, let's consider a combat between two homogeneous forces described by the following equations, where x and y are greater than 0. With x as a function of time, at the time equals 0, and which is equal to the initial x0, and y the same, where x of time and y of time denote the x and y levels at time t, and f and g denote the force change rates, or in this case, casualty rates. Now let us consider the decision of how many forces the victor should initially commit to combat, assuming the vector x has enough forces to win. The y force commander has a known strategy, and the goal is to find the optimal initial force commitment x of 0 for x given y0. We assume that the x force commander bases his decision on just one criteria out of the three possible ones: friendly losses, which is described by the function Lx equal x0 minus x final, the loss ratio, which is Rc, equal to the ratio between the initial x and the final, and the difference between the initial x and the final x and y respectively, and the loss difference, which is the difference between the initial x and the final x and the y as well. X final and y final denote the final forces left at the end of the battle when t is t final. Now we take in consideration the dependence of force level on initial conditions. We usually take t, the time, as the independent variable or a time parameter in the above model, and consider that x is equal to x of t and y is equal to y of t. For a battle won by x,
YF will have to satisfy an already given battle determination condition so that the X force level can depend on this YF. Thus, in general, we have the following equations. Therefore, for each battle won by X, we need to reparameterize the course of battle in terms of Y by inverting Y of Yt, where dy over dt is smaller than 0 for all t which belongs to the interval between 0 and the final time. Thus, in general, the form of the battle model is the following equation. The conditions for this are that the dx over dy is the operator, which is equal to the function of q of t and u, where u is x over y. Our reparameterization in terms of y gives us the following formulas. By holding y and y0 constant and differentiating the above integral with respect to x0, we will obtain another integral which can be solved by differentiating with respect to y and integrating the resulting first order linear ordinary differential equation. Thus, we can obtain the change that results from the final x force level to variations in x's initial strength. Now, for another thing we need to take in consideration are the derivatives of the decision criteria. And finally, we can calculate the results for our breakpoint. For this case, we have selected the fixed force level breakpoint, where we have a battle with a fixed force level breakpoint to be won by x, and we assume that the Lancaster type equations are quasi-autonomous. If dx over dy is q of u, a strictly convex function of u on the interval 0 and infinity, then the decision criterion C is a strictly convex function of x0 for C equal Lx Rc or Dc. So in this case, we have the following partial derivatives, and the results will also vary depending on time in the following way. If Tf is smaller or equal to Tc, then Tf will be equal that. For the same situation, Rc will be equal to that relation, and when Tf is greater than Tc, Rc is equal to that relation, and drc over dx0 will be equal there.
To conclude that in strategic decision making, optimal resource allocation is crucial for both attackers and the defenders on the global game. The effectiveness of strategy depends on understanding the interplay between resource allocation and the target characteristics. Defenders should focus on maximizing the effectiveness on the retained targets, while the attackers should aim to minimize it. The relative allocation of resources and the intrinsic defensibility of targets significantly influence the probability of retaining targets, emphasizing the need for careful strategic planning and allocation of resources. On the other side, the Lancaster models use differential equations to optimize initial force deployment in battle by modeling casualty rates and applying decision criteria. It accounts for the influence of initial conditions and parameterizes the battle based on the opposing forces level. The analysis shows that decision criteria are strictly a convex function, enabling strategic optimization. This model assists military strategists in making informed decisions to achieve the desired outcomes while minimizing losses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? If not, I have a small question. I noticed that you focused your talk on actual war strategies. So that's in the title, so I guess that's fair. But have you ever thought of applying the blotter game strategies maybe to political strategies? Maybe for the impending presidential elections?
Well, yes, that's the beauty of it. Both military applications can also be used for civilian applications, where we have, for example, global games can be used in politics or even economics, where we can take the battlefield as a stock market, where we have to put in all the stock, invest all the stocks in certain areas, and whichever area is greater, that basically we win over that entire area. Or we can use the vice versa, the alliance principle in game theory, which is a civil application, can be applied in war by forging alliances. For example, World War II, the two opposing forces. That is a classic example of alliances in war by using game theory. So yeah.
So okay, you considered everything.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next talk is entitled A Statistical Study of Diabetes Prevention Research, Insights into Glucometer Guided Biomarkers Patterns. And it is given by Alexandra Ioana Cipu and Larisa Georgiana Ungureanu from the National University of Science and Technology Polytechnic Bucharest.
Excuse me. Hello, I'm Roxandra, this is Larissa, and this is our presentation. Where is it? No. Okay, so let's talk about diabetes for a second. Diabetes is a chronic condition characterized by insufficient insulin production or inefficient use of insulin. You probably have heard of somebody who has diabetes, or maybe you even have diabetes yourself. There are two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is usually something acquired in childhood or when you're born. The immune system attacks your cells that produce insulin, and type 2 is acquired during your lifetime because of insufficient sport or a diet that isn't really proper. And health risks associated with diabetes include heart disease, kidney failure, and visual impairment. For diagnosis, there is an assessment of symptoms, risk factors, and more laboratory tests such as premeal blood glucose and glycated hemoglobin levels. Okay, so what is a glucometer? A glucometer is an essential tool for monitoring glucose levels, and usually there are two methods used. The electrochemical method that measures blood glucose by detecting the electric current generated when glucose is in the blood glucose reacts with glucose-sensitive enzyme, and the parametric method that quantifies blood glucose concentration by measuring the electric current. So usually the parametric method is used in glucometers, and here we have a test strip. You put blood on it, and this test strip is covered with an enzyme, glucose oxidase, that produces an electric reaction, which further transmits a current that is amplified by an amplifier because the current is really small, and then the glucometer shows a value generated by the electric current that is proportional to your blood glucose levels. So for our analysis, we have analyzed biomarkers and parameters such as the age, gender, body mass index, hypertension, heart disease, smoking history, and glycated hemoglobin, which is hemoglobin covered in sugar, and glucose levels.
Next, I'm going to present to you the statistical analysis we've conducted using RStudio and the database with people both diagnosed with diabetes and healthy people. The first figure is showing a histogram with diabetes present in people of different ages. Here we can see that the maximum overall prevalence of diabetes is between the ages of 75 and 80. Another peak is between 45 and 55 years old. But how does blood glucose impact the diagnosis of diabetes? In this figure, we can see the blood glucose in healthy versus diabetic people. Blood glucose level between 125 and 200 suggests a chance of prediabetes, as we can see where the red stripes and the blue stripes overlay. As in this zone, there are both values from healthy and diabetic people. Approximately the same results we can see here on the impact of glycated hemoglobin level in healthy people versus diabetic people, and the pre-diabetes zone is somewhere between 5.6 and 6.6. In this figure, we can see a box plot of blood glucose levels for diabetics and undiagnosed people. Blood glucose levels are proportional to the chances of having diabetes and can be used to establish a diagnosis for the patient. However, there is a range of blood glucose values that emphasizes the need for other data to reach an accurate diagnosis. What impact does glycated hemoglobin have on the diagnosis? In this box plot of the glycated hemoglobin levels test for diabetics and undiagnosed people, we can see similar results. The levels are closely linked to the chances of having diabetes and can be used to establish a diagnosis for the patient. The higher they are, the higher the risk of being diagnosed with diabetes. The next question we asked ourselves was if the blood glucose levels and the glycated hemoglobin levels are related. Here we can see they are not in a linear regression, but they do form two separate groups naturally, and where the dark blue dots overlay with the light blue dots, we can see a mixed zone, which is the pre-diabetic diagnosis zone. In figure 7 is a normal QQ plot, which used to test the distribution of body mass index. We also conducted the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, and the value we can see in figure 8. The p-value is very small, which means that the null hypothesis is rejected and the body mass index distribution is not normal. In this box plot of the body mass index in diabetic versus undiagnosed people, we can see that there is a difference between the body mass index, but we don't know if it is if it has any statistical value. So a Wilcoxon test we performed, and the p-value was also really small, so the null hypothesis is rejected, and indeed the body mass index for the two groups are different. The scree plot in figure 11 for the numeric columns is used to determine the number of factors to retain in the principal component analysis. We can translate this into the fact that in the cumulative percentage section, the first principal components form 100% of the total variance. This implies that almost all of the variation in the dataset of variables can be accounted for by the first 6 principal components, with the first one, age, having the largest impact on the analysis.
Okay, so we continued with PCA, Principal Component Analysis. Okay, to see how important each variable is in our data set and in the analysis of this data set. And here we have a PCA plot, which determines how much each, yeah. So a low value, such as hypertension, the one on the right, means that this variable is not perfectly represented by this component. Why we conducted a PCA? The data set was pretty large, so in order to visualize how important each parameter is, we did this test. And we can see here that heart disease, body mass index, and glucose level are the most important ones. Okay, so this is another PCA plot. It's called a white plot diagram, and all variables grouped together that also have similar colors are positively correlated with each other, such as age, BMI, hypertension, and heart disease. And we can see that smoking history and gender are negatively correlated, so they do not have a strong impact in our data set. But this is also because the patients in this data set weren't specific with their smoking history, and you cannot assign a yes or no to a person when asking them if they are a smoker or not, because maybe they smoked for a couple of years or not. So the smoking history here isn't correlated, but usually medically should be. This is another correlation plot, and we can see here how strong each variable is correlated with another variable. So of course on the diagonal where each one meets itself, is the strongest correlation factor, number. And for example, you can see here that age and diabetes have a pretty intense color, so they're strongly correlated, or age and body mass index, or you can look up and see diabetes and age again, of course, or blood glucose levels and diabetes.
A few important conclusions from our analysis are that blood sugar and glycated hemoglobin levels both play a very important role in assessing a person's health, as they are almost proportional to the chances of having diabetes, especially type 2. Older patients are more likely to develop diabetes. However, this diabetes can be diagnosed at any age. Diabetic people also are more likely to suffer from high blood pressure and heart disease, and also can have higher statistical body mass indexes.
Okay, so for future perspectives and the future ideas, of course, glucometers and biomarkers are crucial for diabetes management, which is a disease that kills people every year, a lot of people. And there's also a device that monitors glucose continuously. It's like a circle that you put on your arm. And I know that I recently found out that there is an app on the market that you can check your blood glucose level continuously. But we thought about optimizing this app with our analysis in order to personalize information and diabetes management. Yes, and the benefits of this optimized app would include improving the quality of life of people with diabetes or pre-diabetes and making healthcare easier. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience? Hello, I do have a small question for you. First of all, where do you took your data from? Your database?
We found it on Kaggle. It's a website with data sets, and we took one that was used by many other people in their data analysis and had a 9.8 out of 10 as credibility.
Okay. The patients are from Romania or from other countries? Do you know? In your database?
I think they're from other countries. I'm pretty sure America, yeah, we use it.
Okay, maybe it will be very interesting to have this analysis and focus on Romanian
Yeah.
patients, let's say, because maybe this is specific and you can analyze it in this frame.
Yes, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Indeed.
Thank you very much. Our next talk is entitled Differential Fractional Games and International Relations, and it is given by Andrei Chianoiu, Sorana Eliza Vulcărețu, Robert Mihai Pivoda, under the coordination of Professor Toma and Professor Penchuk from the National University of Science and Technology Polytechnic of Bucharest. Please.
Care dintre astea e? Mai multe folări.
So, good afternoon. We are going to present our work, which is structured by four main parts. First is the introduction, then we'll move on to differential games, the fractional aspect, that's it. So our presentation is structured by four main parts. First, we are going to the introduction, then we'll move on to differential games, fractional aspect, and case study. And final are the conclusions. Okay, so in the realm of international relations analysis, game theory, especially differential games, has become indispensable for modeling equilibrium and complex scenarios. These games have demonstrated significant value across various domains, including military strategy, economic competition, and environmental management by offering profound insights into the management of complex interactions among state and international organizations. This study seeks to advance modeling flexibility by integrating fractional aspects into differential games, thereby enhancing control capabilities and supporting more informed decision making. By delving into both military and economic dimensions, the research aims to adapt game theory principles from military to civilian applications, encompassing strategic interactions in conflict resolution, economic negotiations, and humanitarian aid. Incorporating the fractional aspects of a differential game promises a more nuanced and adaptable approach, effectively capturing the intricacies of economic policies and their influence of strategic decisions.
We start with the definition of two-person zero-sum differential game. We denote by Rn the m-dimensional Euclidean space with variable point UE. Next, we will consider a system of m differential equation 1 with the initial condition 2, where we are a function of them. We assume that f satisfies the condition of point R. We refer to the variable we as the player and call capital letter UE the control set of the players. The measurable function we there with the value in capital letter we is called a control function. For any control function, there exists a unique solution xt of the system 1, call it directly. Next, we introduce a functional pair called payoff for some fixed thing. For example, if we have E equal 1 and 2, the objective of we is to maximize the payoff of the objective of U is to minimize it. Enter the cost function 3, where J and hash E are continuous function. For any choose UE day, we compute the trajectory x day from 1 and 2 and the cost, and then the cost J, if n equal 2, then J1 plus J2 equals 0, then we are in the two-person zero-sum game situation, but in general we have the n-person game. Successful point. It's a Nash equilibrium point if inequality 4 is true for any strategies gamma k for UK. Thus, if one were UK unlikely derived from strategy gamma star k, then its cost will increase. If an Nash equilibrium exists, then the vector V is called the equilibrium value. Next, we will consider the Hamilton-Jacobi equation with the terminal condition vacate Tx equal Jkx. If the system has a continuous solution with a continuous second x derivative, then we will obtain a continuously differential successor point. We consider quadratic linear game in case f is linear, x u1 up to n un, and je is quadratic, namely equation 7, then one speaks of linear quadratic game. In the case Hamilton-Jacobi equation 8 can be solved, where Ke satisfies the system of Riccati equation for which a solution exists. If they is small enough, the Je satisfies linear differential equation, and Phi is obtained by integrating the function definite of the Ke and Je. If f equals Ax plus sum of Be, then 9 is a solution that solution is called a closed loop, equilibrium strategy. An open loop equilibrium point is a vector 10, so that inequality 11 is true. Next, we'll have an example. Consider a two-player zero-sum percent evasion differential game with the following dynamic dynamics, where X is a state, who is the control of player 1, and V is the control of player 2. Player 1 wants to drive the state X to the target set C, while player 2 wants to avoid this. Isaac approach. Isaac proposed an approach to solve such game based on the concept of the barrier, a hypersurface in the state space that separates the state where one player can force the game to end in the river. The key steps are: first step is define the value function Vx as the maximum time it takes player 1 to drive the state C starting from Fx, assuming both players play optimally. The second step is to derive the Hamilton-Jacobi Isaac equation for Vx. 3. Next, to solve the equation to find Vx. The barriers separate the state where player 1 can force the game to end in his favor from that of the state in which player 2 can force the game to end in his favor. Or, in the end, we must derive the optimal strategy for both pair from the variant of AX.
Okay, so the next concept is concentrate on the fractional aspect of differential games, which are a branch of control theory where the evolutionary So the next content is concentrate on the fractional aspect of differential games, which are a branch of control theory, where the evolutionary processes are governed by the control variables. In a differential game, we have two or more players, and they independently control these variables, each aiming to minimize their associated cost. Each player's information is limited to observing the evolving processes up to the current time. And let's assume we have a player I and a player Z. The first player dictates their control decision based on the past observation, aiming to maximize these pairs. Similarly, player Z employs a strategy to minimize the payoff function. The payoff game represents the equilibrium point where each player optimally chooses their strategy, balancing their respective objectives. And the fractional differential equations governing the system are complex and deep, and on the fractional derivatives, reflecting the interaction and decisions made by each player over time. On the optimal control and solutions, the goal is to find the optimal control functions that maximize or minimize the payoff under the constraints imposed by the differential equations on the player's strategies. The fractional aspects in the differential games involve the strategic allocation of actions over time intervals. Players can fractionally distribute their actions represented by control variables to influence the system dynamics described by dx over dt is equal to f of tx u from 1 to n. And the cost functions is represented by ji of u from 1 to n and is equal to integrate from t0 from to t, where of g of x of t, where g are a continuous function. Each player aims to minimize their respective costs by choosing their control u I of t. This approach extends to n-person games where achieving a Nash equilibrium defined by this relation for any unilateral derivation, which is crucial. And we have one example of a fractional differential game, is a pursuit evasion scenario. And the scenario description is represented by a pursuit evasion game where a pursuer noted with P and an evader noted with E move in a plane with constant speed, which are noted with omega 1 and omega 2. Each player controls the direction of their velocity vector, denoted theta P for P and theta E for E. Dynamics with the fractional aspects. Well, we have the pursuer's motion and the evader's motion, and xp and xe are the position of the pursuer and evader. The parameters alpha and beta introduce memory effects and historical dependency into player strategies. The objectives for the pursuer is to minimize the time required to capture the inverter, while the inverter seeks to maximize evasion time to avoid the capture of the pursuer. The impact of fractional dynamics. Well, fractional derivatives allows players to incorporate past actions into their current strategies, influencing optimal decision making over time intervals. The parameters alpha and beta characterize the persistence of past decision and reaching the strategic complexity compared to traditional differential games.
And now we will move on to a case study where we will have, we will take for in this instance a simple type of n-person general sum differential game, which refers to resource exploitation with open access. First, we will start with the notations, where we have I is a 1 to the n, which represents the players. X belongs to the real realm of numbers, which is the state space for non-negative stocks of exhaustible resources, as well as T and Ci. Hi of x and t is the instantaneous payoff of player I, where ui belongs to c squared of r of the positive real realm, which is a utility function, which is assumed to be strictly increasing and strictly concave, and hi is greater than 0, which is a time reference rate for player I. The system evolution follows the state equation x prime equal minus sum of ci. The payoff for any player is ji. The admissible closed loop strategy set for player I is si. And the class Simon functions from x to ci or r plus to r plus. Thus, under strategy, S starts to belong to the larger realm Si, where Ci of t is equal to Si, a function of x and t. Now we set S to be the Cartesian product of all players' admissible strategy sets, where if an initial stock X is available at time t, then J of X, T, and S will be equal to all the functions. Now, economists are interested in determining the structure of the optimal, the time of path of the state variable, and distributive issues, allocative issues, sensitivity of these configurations with respect to the number of players, and sensitivity of these configurations with respect to the characteristics of the players. Furthermore, can the tax and subsidy system be implemented to eliminate inefficiency? Though this problem appears simple, the answers to the above questions are known only under very specific conditions. Several cases will be considered, and for now we will focus upon one single case, when players are identical with constant elastic marginal utility ROI, whichever I is. Now, we assume that U of I is the following function for each value of I, where one strategy equilibrium for all players is Si of x, for epsilon in the realm of -1 and 1 plus 1 over n. The value function is v of y x of t for epsilon equal to -1 and for any value of y. From the Hamilton-Jacobi equation, we have that we extract that 0 is equal to the entire equation with s of x equal to sj of x. So we have by symmetry x of t is equal to x of 0 exponential of minus rt over 1 minus n 1 plus epsilon. Now, identical players benefit from coordinated management, extracting as a single player and sharing equally. A nonlinear tax and subsidy schedule can correct the inefficiency without actual tax collection, and if epsilon approaches linearity, no continuous solution exists for epsilon greater or equal to -1 plus 1 over n.
And in conclusion, systems of n-dimensional differential equation describe the dynamics of a process controlled by multiple players each with distinct control variables and objectives. Each player adjusts his actions over time to maximize the benefit or minimize the cost, contributing to the evolution of the system between two given points in time, starting from an initial condition. The player's costs and benefits are integrated over the considered time interval, and the game's equilibrium is reached when each optimizes its strategy relative to the others, resulting in a Nash equilibrium. The fractional aspect introduces fractional derivatives to describe complex interactions and long-term decisions. These concepts are applicable in various fields such as economics, where limited resources are managed by multiple actors with different interests. Identifying optimal strategies and balancing players leads to more efficient resource management and improved overall results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience? No, thank you very much. Okay, the first part of this section is now over. Let's take a short break.
Our next talk is entitled Fourier Series for Functions with Complex Values and Applications, given by Alexandra Mihaela Ceaușu, Alexandra Valentina Bran, under the coordination of Romeo Bercea from the National University of Science and Technology Polytechnica Bucharest. Please, you may begin.
Okay, we hope everyone can hear us.
Yes, we can hear you, please.
Okay. Well, I am Avram Alexandru, and together with my colleague Ceaușu Ruxandra, we made the following paper. Just a moment, so we can make a share. We made a paper Fourier series for functions with complex values and their applications. In the following slides, we're going to make an introduction for the theoretical part of our paper. 1 second. We need to remake the share screen.
Yes, we will share the full screen because we will switch in between programs.
Second, we're sorry. Okay, share, and we're going to share our full screen right now. Okay.
I hope it works now.
Yes,
Now
it works now.
Okay, so we will talk firstly generally about Fourier series, then we will continue for the Fourier series for complex valued functions, and in the end my colleague will go back to the application we have built and its implementation. Now, for the Fourier series, its general form is very important. So we consider a function a real valued function with defined on a 0-1 interval. It's continuous and its value in 0 equals to the value in 1. Or we could also consider a function defined on the real plane, real valued of course, and it's also continuous with a period of t equal to 1. Now, the expansion of such a function into a Fourier series is the following. For every t in that interval of 0, 1, and we have also defined the an and bn coefficients. Now, to transform this form into the complex form for the Fourier series, we start from Euler's formulas for the cosine and the sine. Now, the series will become, as we see in this in the following way, and we will replace the cosine and the sine, and by grouping the coefficients by their exponentials and making these notations for the coefficients, we will reach to the complex form that will become a sum from -infinite to infinite of a coefficient Cn and this exponential over there. The coefficients, we will see that will have the following form, and we can make a main observation here based on the fact that the function has real values, that the coefficients for a -n equals to the conjugate for the coefficient Cn. Now, the Fourier series for complex valued function is the most important today. We can now consider a function defined on the same interval, 0 to 1, but it's now complex valued and will also have the same expansion into a complex Fourier series. Now the main question remains how to determine these coefficients, the Cn. We can start by integrating the function on the 0-1 interval. We now see the expansion of that series over here that we will integrate on that interval. It is the integral of an infinite sum, and we will continue with switching the integral with the sum. Now, because of the exponentials, we will have mostly 0 values, but 1, the C0. So we will anticipate the form of the Cn coefficients by this result. Now, to determine a general result, we multiply the function by this exponential over here. It is also the integral of the infinite sum. The integral switches with the sum, and we reach a lot of 0 values, but the one for the Cn coefficients. So we will now reach to the fact that the Cn is an integral from 0 to 1 of the function itself multiplied by the exponential we have multiplied the function before. Now, Because the function has complex values, those coefficients for a minus n will not necessarily equal to that conjugate for the Cn coefficients. The graphical representation is another milestone in this project. We have considered the function with complex values. Therefore, it has the following form. So it is a function for time values, basically. It is an u plus an I multiplied by v. Now, the graphical representation, it's a curve in the complex plane with the parametric form. So basically, those x's and the y's will be u with a t parameter and the v with the also that parameter defined on that interval of 0, 1. So basically, now we'll get to the numerical approximation. It is the most important part in this paper because we have also concentrated our program based on these aspects. Now, we need to take into consideration several things when we are referring to the approximation. Firstly, it is about the number of terms considered from the Fourier series. We have that number counted as n. Now, the function, we had it previously defined on a sum from minus infinite to infinite, but now since we have considered only some terms, we have here a symmetrical interval to say from minus n to n. Also, the second aspect is the numerical approximation of the Cn coefficients, for which we have found previously this formula. Now, more about the numerical approximation, because we know the values of the function in some points that belong to its domain, we can approximate the integral using quadrature formulas in the following way. Also, we have used the trapezoidal rule for uniform division because in MATLAB, we have used the trapez procedure to implement this trapezoidal rule. And in the following, since we have discussed all of this, my colleague Alex will talk more about the application we have developed in MATLAB using the complex Fourier series for complex valued function and its implementation.
As far as implementations goes, we don't have a function we know prior to running our program. That's why we decided to write a Python script using the OpenCV2 library so that we can use an image, apply grayscale to it, and then we take the curve that represents our given image or shape and we express it as points. So that, as presented in the prior slides, we can make a function that is equal to an u plus an iv. For that, we can show the following MATLAB script I'm opening right now. For this, we chose a letter. We chose K to represent. Just as my colleague said, we have defined an n, which is the number of our positive terms, and an m, which is the number of moments we represent in the interval from 0 to 1. If it is to run this program, we'll first see the counter we chose to represent. It is this k. If you run the script, we can see the counter being drawn. We did this by getting each point, calculating the coefficients and the function, and then we did a plot using the complex Fourier functions. In this image, we can see here normally magenta, the counter that is the result of our calculations. If we are to look here with green, we can see the contour we acquired via calculations and the original image. As you can see, we got an okay shape for the values we chose for n and m. Starting from this idea, we chose to make a library containing all the letters of the alphabet. We did this in order to be able to approximate words and to plot them. For that, we made another Python script, another MATLAB script, where we give an input given by the user to the program. We take each letter, we plot it, but we also need to take into account that in order to avoid overlapping each letter, we need to make a translation. So that if you run this script, you'll be prompted to insert a word. We will say thanks. And now we can see the word being done on the screen and also the window auto-resizing according to the length of the word. And this concludes our presentations. Just as our calculation said, we thank you for your time and attention.
Alexandra Codruța-Neagu from the Military Technical Academy, Ferdinand from Bucharest. Please.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I can share the screen. Okay, yeah, can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So hello, first. I'm Alexandra Codruța-Neagu. I'm a master student at Military Technical Academy, and I'll present a part of my thesis that is mental condition classification using social media data. Firstly, we get some content. I'll tell you some introduction, some about the data I used, the approach I wanted to start with, the algorithms, and the results, of course. In the introduction, we know that artificial intelligence is popular nowadays, and so much people, organization, or CRLs start using the models or neural networks or machine learning algorithms into their solution. And mental health is starting to get so popular into the young because our pandemic and all the time we had with ourselves let us think about what we want to do, what to do, and how to manifest our emotions. And I came with a solution to integrate this artificial intelligence with mental health domain using social media. As data, I get some posts from Reddit that was classified into more subgroups from everyday subjects like economics, finance, cooking, and mental health domain like anxiety, depression, and maneuverate this dataset into two sub-datasets, one binary and one multi-class. The first one has the distribution from the image, where blue we can see the non-mental subreddits, and with orange we can see the mental subreddits. This dataset will be used in a binary model. The second dataset, we took all the mental subreddits, all the posts, and make more classes, 13 in number, for each domain. We can see we have more data in depression, suicide watch, but less from addiction or bipolar Reddit. This model is used in a multi-class classification in the future. The approach, because of this data set and the way we manage to combine all the subreddits, was like input. We go into the binary model where we have the results as mental class or non-mental class. If the non-mental class is chosen, we have the results. But if the mental class is came as the result, the input will go into a multi-class model, resulting in one of the class we can see on the screen. That class will be our results given with the probability of the model and the dataset. From the algorithms, I choose 3 from the ones I work with. First one is the random forest. This is a simple classification algorithm. It's used in a lot of problems. It was our benchmark model. It has a score for about 60%. For the CNN, this is a convolutional neural network. We can see the architecture on the right. We used 2 layers of conv1D. Conv1D is a layer that uses Windows and is going through the data, minimize the data. Let's say we have a screen of 5 or 5, and we minimize the data into 1, like a matrix going into an image. But we don't have image, we have text, so this is why it's 1D. And all the text was considered a matrix, 1-dimensional. Long short-term memory, LSTM, is the model we had the accent. We can see the architecture on the right is very similar with the convolutional one, but we have 2 layers of bidirectional layers. This is this LSTM is working with memory, and it keeps tracking the characteristic it extracts from future and the past of the model. In this model, for improving the score, we used class weights that is especially good for imbalanced datasets like ours, and data augmentation. For the results, I didn't put in for the binary model, but the binary model had an accuracy of 96. A good score for binary classification, but the accent was on multi-class classification, where the scores was less, but although good. The first model with the less score was CNN, using pre-processing techniques of tokenization. Tokenization is a technique. We transform the data from text in numerical values because none of the models can assimilate the text, because behind all the architecture and all the API we used in the programming process, there is mathematical functions, and it needs to use numerical data. So convolutional neural network using tokenization had a final score of 63%. Random forest using TFI-DF, this is it's just a formula with we see how many words we have in a document based on the all documents. It's like a probability of the word in each document. The random forest can use to transform the text into numbers. Using long short-term memory with the tokenization, we had a F1 score of 71. And glove embeddings for the last 2 models are a dictionary where we can do similarity into words like run and running have the same understanding in the model, so they are considering the same. And we can see the best model had a 73% F1 score. We are looking for the F1 score because of the imbalanced data set, and the accuracy is not so predictable. So we want to see the precision, recall, and the combination of them as F1 score. Here I put some advanced results. In the left, you have a classification report from the lesser than model. We can see the score for each class. As for the EDA anonymous is corresponding to each disorder, we have an F1 score of 86. It's a good score because the model can understand the words in the post like eat, food, or problem, and the symptoms are quite different from the rest. But we have depression and suicide watch that has a lower score. We can see it in the right photo in the confusion matrix. Depression is 6 and suicide watch is 12. We can see it is quite similar illness, if we can say this, and the symptoms are quite the same because it demonstrates the people who have suicide thoughts suffer from depression too. So the symptoms are similar and the score in our model is quite lower because of this. Summing all this, we have the final score of 73. In the future work, we went to do an attention mechanism to see how the words influence the model to learn and how we can manage to accentuate the words we want the model to put accent in the training process. And of course, we want to look for more algorithms and data sets to see how artificial intelligence understand the text from different sources and using different types of algorithms. In conclusion, we wanted to see what are the capabilities of the artificial intelligence in mental health domain using textual data from social media platforms, as this is the most resources we have in actual time. So this was all. Thank you. I don't know if you have questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? If not, thank you again.
Thank you, too.
Our next talk is entitled Comparative Analysis between Alpha Beta Gamma Filter and Kalman Filter, Mathematical Applications. And it is given by Iulian Nicolae Petria under the coordination of Professor Toma and Professor Costovaru from the National University of Science and Technology Polytechnica.
Posso deixar no final?
It's a control.
Okay, so good afternoon everyone. My name is Iulian Nicolae. I will switch from the bottom of this room to the top to have a clear view of the audience. And today I have the pleasure to present to you our comparative analysis between two filters, the alpha beta gamma filters and the Kalman filter, and some mathematical approaches regarding these two methods. So this is me, Iulian Nicolae, and my supervisor Antonella Toma and Dr. Dan Costovaru. So I divided my speech into 5 parts. Some keywords about these projects, some of the extended abstract, what are indeed the alpha beta gamma filter and the Kalman filter, and towards the end I will have a comparison and I will draw some conclusion based on them. So the keywords that the whole presentation is built around are the GPS, the sensor fusion, an autonomous drone, and I will come back immediately to that, the physical state estimation, and the interdisciplinary mathematical approach. So, as I promised you earlier, in case you wonder how to build a drone from the scratch, you may think about some of the important steps. In order to do that, you have to have a good chassis and to have enough room to accommodate the whole equipment, the whole hardware, and the whole software. So another important part is to have the mathematical tools applied to the autonomous drone in order to have the full view of this problem. So throughout my first year, I had the opportunity to work with multiple professors from my university, and today has come to analyze the mathematical tools behind the drone. Another important key that was discussed previously was how to make the chassis of the drone suitable for this application, but this is another story. So the drone does not know the accurate position at a certain moment in time, and I have two sensors into the drone, the accelerometer and the GPS. And it is known that they send data at different frequencies. So by applying on the one hand the alpha beta gamma filter, which is said to be more robust, or the Kalman filter, which is more efficient, you can have a more predictable set of data. So, both the alpha, beta, gamma, and the Kalman filter deals with combining the data that are received by the GPS and the accelerometer. So, by combining those two data, you can obtain more accurate results. Okay, so here you have an overview of the alpha, beta, gamma filter. You can see here the update part and the predict part, and I will come back to it immediately. Okay, so you may recognize here the equation from the physics, the acceleration, the velocity, and the position. And yes, this is indeed what this slide is about. And the next step is the state update equation, where the actual parameters alpha, beta, and gamma are set and defined. The only problem with this filter is that you have to set this very precisely. And towards the end of my presentation, I will have some demonstration about how to choose optimally the alpha, beta, gamma, and how the system will evolve if the beta will be set to 0 or the alpha or the gamma will be set to 0. But that will be towards the end of my presentation. Now I will focus more on the Kalman filter. We have in the initial step 2 measurements, and towards the end of this Kalman filter I will have to predict the system state and also the system state error covariance to measurement time. But the most important steps are the step 4 and the step 5, where I will compute the Kalman gain denoted with K and also the system state and system state error covariance and measurement time. And here are the equation. So, you may recognize on the left side the internal parameters and the output parameters that are sent to the Kalman filters, and also the system model inside the Kalman filter. I will have towards the end of my presentation some information about the age and the Q metrics. And as a simple example to start with, I will have a simulation on a 2D with X and Y, and also I will define R and T. So, the first step where the drone receives the first parameters from the outside are plotted in the right side, and Sorry for this. Okay, so we need another step, the step second, to reinitialize the system state in order to have more precise results. And towards the step 3, where I initialize the system state, you can observe here that for the matrix P1, you have some very large numbers here because this provides the uncertainty of the whole system. So, as I previously mentioned, the step 4 and the step 5 are the most important one, but before that, I will speak more about the QHDH matrices that promised before. So the Q matrix in my example will be chosen to be simple because of the purpose of only the simulation of this, but in real life it can be more complex. Also, this is applied also in the case of age, where in my example I chose only to work with 0 and 1, the unitary matrix. So, coming back to the original equation, for the step 3 we can have this equation. And now, speaking about the step 4, okay. Okay, so now I can compute the Kalman gain, and there is indeed an interesting fact about this Kalman gain. And when a noise measurement comes into place, the Kalman filter will transmute the previous measurement or the actual measurement instead of the inaccurate information. So, in the end of this filter, we have the estimate system state, denoted with X and PX. So this was the whole theory behind these two filters, and I would like to focus more on the actual results that were obtained via some experiments in Python and in MATLAB. So I will start with the alpha, beta, gamma filter, and in the beginning of my presentation, as you might remember, the accelerometer and the GPS have different sampling frequencies. So for the accelerometer, I have 1 kilohertz, and from the GPS, typical sampling frequency is about 10 hertz. So if I choose a Weierstrass function in order to have the second derivative different from 0, so I can calculate the whole system for the alpha, beta, gamma filter, I can obtain this graph, taking into consideration that the beta and the gamma filter are set to 0. As I previously mentioned, the estimate system position will try to achieve the real system position, but with difficulties. So you can see where when the graph is modifying the real system position, the estimated system position is trying, but it's hard to achieve the previous graph. So I will set now the beta to be different to 0, and you can see to a comparison that the graph will look better. And finally, when I will have gamma and beta both set different to 0, the estimated system position will be approximately the same with the real system position. Okay, so this is the simulation made for the alpha, beta, gamma filter. And next, I will have a simulation for the Kalman filter. Here are the parameters set to the MATLAB program, and on the right I have the recap from the theory behind. So I will have a simulation with only the position of the drone using only the GPS, and only both using the accelerometer and the GPS. And I will have also simulation with a Weierstrass function to simulate a comparison between the alpha, beta, gamma filter and the Kalman filter. Okay, so the first simulation with only the position of the drone using the GPS, it's shown in the left side of the PPT. And the simulation with both the accelerometer and GPS is shown on the right. And you can see that the filter position from the GPS is achieving with more success to accommodate the measurement points. And also when I will have a Weierstrass function, as in the previous example for the alpha beta gamma filter, you can see that the filter position both for the accelerometer and the GPS is trying with more success to meet the data set points from the MATLAB. Okay, so um, to have a small view about the comparison between the alpha beta gamma filter and the Kalman filter, it is said to be more robust, the Kalman filter, because you don't have to set the parameters for the alpha, beta, and gamma. The system will predict them. But in case you have a small application, you may choose the alpha, beta, gamma filter. But for an autonomous drone that needs to know its accurate position for each time of its flight, you need to take into consideration the wind speed and more parameters that can be unpredictable in a flight, so the Kalman filter can be a more comprehensive model. But the most important thing to be considered about both filters, they can be implemented on low restriction memory on embedded system indeed. So when making an autonomous drone, you need to take into consideration, as I previously mentioned in the introduction, a lot of factors from the chassis to the space to accommodate the hardware and making the software and the hardware for the application, and also the mathematical tools, because in case you don't have enough knowledge in math, you cannot have the drone to be fully autonomous in the flight. So when I made the presentation, I came across a site made by Albert Einstein who said, in the life you should not stop questioning yourself, and the curiosity can be somehow the beginning point of some interesting pieces of results. So the outlook in the future of this project can be to implement more sensors and to have an AI solution implemented inside the drone, to not necessarily have to have a human being to actually control the drone every moment. And also there are some civil and military areas where this Kalman filter and alpha beta gamma filters can be applied. So this is my presentation, and here I posted the bibliography that was used during my presentation. Thank you for being here today, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to present this project to you. Thank you, and I'm willing to answer.
Thank you very much. It was a very thorough comparison, and you actually gave some relevant results. It was incredible. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience? No? Then thank you. Great work. Okay, our next speaker is not available right now, so if maybe Futia Shai and Mohammed Sadiq are present online, would you like to give your talk now?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you, but very...
Can you hear me, please?
Okay, we can hear you. Are you ready to give your talk now?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So our next talk is entitled Numerical Simulation of Water Infiltration in Heterogeneous Soils. And it is given by Futia Shai, I'm sorry if I misread your name, and Mohammed Sadiq from Ibn Zor University, Faculty of Sciences in Morocco.
Okay, thank you. Can you see my slide now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. So, hello everyone. My name is Fuzia Sihil, and I am a PhD student in the Engineering Sciences Laboratory at Ibn Zahr University in Morocco. First of all, I would like to say thank you to both the organizing and scientific committees for giving us the opportunity to share our research work entitled Numerical Simulation of Water Infiltration in Heterogeneous Soil. I had the pleasure to contribute while preparing this work with my supervisor, Professor Sadiq from Ibn Zahr University. This presentation is organized as follows. First of all, we start with the abstract. Next, we introduce the problematic and aims of this research work. After that, we describe the mathematical model and the methods used. Then, we present the obtained results, and finally, some conclusions are drawn. It is known that the prediction of water infiltration in insaturated soils is a significant issue in various engineering domains. Moreover, in insaturated soils, the groundwater flow is perfectly modeled using the Richards equation. Our objective in this work is the simulation of water infiltration through heterogeneous soils. This heterogeneity is represented by the random behavior of the saturated hydraulic conductivity, which is taken as a log-normally distributed random field, and it is generated using the Carhonel wave decomposition. To achieve our objective, we use a meshless approach based on radial basis functions with peak iterations combined with the proper orthogonal decomposition technique, and we will prove in numerical results the efficiency of our proposed approach. Infiltration through porous medium is a significant component of the hydrological cycle, and its modeling is of importance to water resources management and agriculture. This problem has received good interest from the scientific community. Therefore, several numerical methods in literature have been used to solve this problem. However, most of these methods face computational feasibility, especially in terms of computational cost. Therefore, we aim in this work to develop a new technique based on meshless methods in order to solve the Richards equation in one-dimensional heterogeneous soil. In other words, we will simulate the water infiltration problem using a meshless approach based on RPF with peak iteration technique, and also reduce the CPU time by considering the pod technique. The flow problem considered in this study is obtained by the Darcy's law and the mass conservation equation. More precisely, the problem is given by the following equation selected in red, where capital K is the product of the saturated hydraulic conductivity and the relative one. The saturated hydraulic conductivity is modeled as a log-normal random field, which can be given by the expression selected in blue. For generating the Z field, which is present in the formula of the saturated hydraulic conductivity, we suggest to use the Carhonel wave expansion, which consists in giving the Z field in a form with finite number of random variables as shown in the following expression selected in blue, where the mean of Z is equal to 0. Cn are random variables normally distributed in the closed interval 0, 1. And finally, the eigenvalues lambda and eigenfunctions b are obtained by solving the following equation selected in blue, where Cz is the covariance function. So, to generate a field using a Carhonel wave expansion, there are 4 steps. First step is to construct the covariance function and then evaluate the eigenvalues and eigenfunctions from the matrix of covariance. Next, we generate the random variables Tn, and finally generate and display the realization of Z. The aim of this work is to present a meshless approach based on RPF for modeling the infiltration problem presented in the last slides. So what are the methods used to accomplish this objective? In brief, we use a meshless approach based on RPF. This method is based on scattered nodes, therefore they are very flexible in terms of the geometry and the computational domain, and we specifically use the multi-quadratic function. And since C and K of our equation are nonlinear functions of the pressure head H, we need to introduce some linearization using the Picard iteration method. And in order to reduce the computational cost, we introduce the proper orthogonal decomposition, which is based on finding the numerical solution at the few time steps. So in this slide, we show a brief description of the general structure of the proposed approach, where we start by a temporal discretization using the backward-Euler method, and then apply the Picard iteration technique and the RPF method to obtain the linear system to solve. Without forget to consider the boundary conditions also. And we finish by solving our problem with consideration of the pot technique and conclude the approximate solution of the pressure head. Numerical experiments are done using our MATLAB software, and to perform our numerical test, we consider the following data concerning the carbonyl wave expansion parameters, the Aberkamp model, the hydraulic conductivity properties, and also the optimal parameters related to the radial basis function method and the Picard iteration technique. In this slide, we show in the figure in the left a comparison between the log normally distributed saturated hydraulic conductivity with and without the truncation in the carbonyl wave decomposition. In the right side, we display in this figure the comparison between the pressure head profile obtained using the proposed approach with and without truncation in the carbonyl wave decomposition of the log normal saturated hydraulic conductivity. We observe a good agreement between the two profiles. Therefore, the truncation in the random field does not influence the precision of the solution. In this table, we reported the errors and CPU time corresponding to our test. We present also the efficiency, which is the product of the error and CPU time. Our results confirm the accuracy of the proposed approach in modeling water infiltration in heterogeneous soils. In conclusion, we proved that the measurement method based on radial basis functions and filtration combined with the pot technique models effectively the infiltration process in heterogeneous porous media. Particularly, it has been validated that Richard's equation with a random saturated hydraulic conductivity is accurately solved with an efficient computational cost. All these results are expected to open up new analytical and decision-making possibilities for managing groundwater flows in heterogeneous soils. Based on that, groundwater experts will be able to accurately model the complex infiltration patterns in areas with heterogeneous soils. And finally, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience? If not, then thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we will take a very short break until our next speaker is able to connect. Thank you. Okay, we will resume our conference. Our next talk is entitled Lessons Learned from a Deep Learning Architecture for Brain Age Prediction, Architectural Complexity and Opportunities. And the talk will be given by Chen Song Ian with Phoebe Eames, Nitin Chen, Nahian Choudhury, Roy Masset, Nikhil Chodar, Paul Thompson, Andrei Irinia, and Paul Bogdan from the University of Southern California, Los Angeles, United States. Please, if you can hear us, you may begin. Music mode.
Hi, hello, I can hear. Yeah, hi, I can hear you.
Hello, and we can see you. You may begin when you are ready, please.
Okay. Because I assume that my presentation is after 20 minutes or something, so I can present now or.
If you are ready, you can present now because we had one participant who did not show up, so we are ahead of schedule. If not, we can give you 10-20 minutes to regroup.
Yeah, okay. I prefer to present after 20 minutes. Is it okay? Because I'm polishing my slides.
Sure. Okay, so we will reconvene in 20 minutes. Okay.
Thanks so much. Hello, can I start?
Marco. Hello again, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So we are going to listen to Chetan In and his collaborators giving a talk about lessons learned from a deep learning architecture for brain age prediction, architectural complexity, and opportunities. Please, we are listening.
Okay. Hi guys. My name is Chen Zhong, and I am a PhD candidate in University of Southern California. My major is computer engineering, and my research focus is more on computer vision, deep learning, and some other network analysis or signal processing. And also I did some NLP tasks. Today's presentation is about lessons learned from a deep learning architecture for brain age prediction. And here it is. So as we know that we have a human being has two age. One is called chronological age, which is called CA, and another age is called brain age, which is called BA. So generally, if people live in a good habit or if he is cognitive normal, we assume that BA is equal to CA. But however, if someone suffers from illness or like MCI, means mild cognitive impairment, or AD autoimmune disease, or these people just live in a bad habit, he takes too much alcohol and some drugs. So the BA may slightly higher than CA. So it's a kind of early signal for MCI and autoimmune disease. So in this way, we would like to design a deep learning model to predict the BA to capture this kind of early signal and analyze like which part of the brain may influence the brain age. So here we collected data, MRI data from 4 different cohorts. I will detailedly introduce it for 4 cohorts after that. And we choose the 3D CNN model architecture for designing. And where the input are the MRIs and the output are the B estimation. So it's a kind of regression problem. And after that, we validate our model performances. And in our case, we train in 2 models. One is for males, another one is for females, because as far as we know that males' brain are slightly different with female brains in some shape or size, something like that. And after that, we would like to add some interpretability of this model. So in this way, we include sentencing map in our approach to explain which part of the brain is more important to determine the brain age. So nowadays, we know that deep learning models are used in many high-level domains like healthcare or some medical decision making. But one of the limitations for deep learning is like we consider is a kind of black box. So simply speaking, is like we don't know how and why. We know why, but we don't know how. Like how the deep learning model doing the optimization to this direction, not to other direction. And the second thing is like because here I show some like we input some features we don't know, or it's hard to determine like which feature is much better than others. So this is our deep learning model, where we use for different blocks, convolutional blocks, and where the input are the crop-weighted MRI, a T1 weighted MRI. So the reason that we crop it is to save some space in the GPU level to make us training faster and validate reference faster. And for the 3D computational blocks, we have 4 blocks, like 3D computational blocks and batch normalization layer. Batch normalization is a kind of normalization to avoid distribution shift between the input of the block and output of the block to minimize overfitting and improve the model performance. And the mask pooling is a kind of shrinking the feature map. And the dropout layer is a classic way to avoid the overfitting problem. And the output layer is just 1 euro for the regression to predict the brain age. And for training, we use the CA as true label and the BA as a predicted label to compute the loss function. And here we use the MSE mean square error to optimize our entire system. And here is example for the 3D CNN and 2D CNN. So the reason that we use 3D CNN is like because for the MRI image, it's a kind of 3D image. So, but for 2D, they have 2D kernel, the 2D kernel cannot parallelly analyze or the neighboring sites, but for 3D it can. So this is kind of one division that we choose this architecture. And here is the data set that we use for training, testing, and validation. So we have 4 data sets, HCP, UKBL Bank, ADNI, and ChemCat. So all of them has same patients, but for ADNI, they also have some AD and Alzheimer's, the AD and MCI patients over here, which means that they have some cognitive impairments. And for model training and validation, we use same patients from this 4 data sets, and we choose 80% of them for training and 20% of them for validation. And after that, we use a ChemCat dataset, which is also a CM dataset to CM is cognitive normal. We use this dataset for testing. It's a kind of, because the reason is like we would like to include an external dataset to guarantee the generalizability of the model. And after that, we also test our model based on Alzheimer's disease and MCI to see is there any brain level differences and brain age level differences between the cognitive normal patients and the AD and MCI. So here are our results for validation for testing. Where the blue panel shows the results for males and red panel shows the results for females. And here in this plot, we use R-square to measure the performance. And the solid line over here represents the no error line. And the margin distribution are the distribution for C and BA. So we can see that most of the individuals for males and females are close to the no error line, and the R-square value is very close to 1. So it means that the model performed well. And after that, we would like to make some comparisons between our model and the state-of-the-art model. Because this paper was published on 2023, so we choose a model from 2022, which is a winning, which is the world-winning model for the brain age prediction. And where this model was only trained on UKBL Bank data, but they trained on a larger data size, like 50K, something like that. And here we generate a radar plot to show the performance on two domains. One is for MAE, another one is for R-square, to compare the model performance across different cohort, different data sets for CN, for both 2 CN data set and one for AD, another one for MCI. And the average ET means the average execution time for inferences, and the trainable parameters represent for the model size. So from this result, we can see that except for UKBL Bank CN, we have similar results, but for the remaining, our model perform much better than this baseline, and we also have shorter estimation time and the smaller trainable parameters. It means that our model is smaller but better. And here are the detailed results for our model. For our model on these 4 different subset testing results, we can see that for CM patients among male and females, the R-square is okay, looks good, and all the individuals are close to the line, the perfect prediction line. But when it comes to MCI and AD over here, the R-square is not okay, and most of the individuals are not close to the perfect prediction line. The reason is like the model is only trained on CM participants, and they are not trained for the MCI and AD. And also, based on neuroscientists' knowledge, it's like for AD and MCI patients are not as low as CM patients MRI. And also, as I mentioned, it's like because AD and MCI, it means that their brain age may slightly or something different with CA. So this is the results. So this is the reason that the model not perform well on these 2 cohorts. And here is the sentencing map. It's like, because we want to answer a question, it's like which part of the brain is highly influenced by the BA, the brain age, I mean. So in this way, we infer the methods from this paper, and we just slightly change the function of the code to apply this method into a 3D space. Simply speaking, it's like the S is the score function, W is the weight, V is the MRI value, and B is the bias. So simply speaking, we can think like for all kind of deep learning model, we can simply write the function into Y equal to WT times X plus B, something like that. So for the brain sensitivity, we would like to use a gradient and monitor the gradient change. Simply speaking, it's like if we put some features inside the system, we want to see how this feature influence the weight of the entire system. So if it's changed a lot, it means that this feature is more important than others. Otherwise, it means this feature is not important. Okay, so this is the example for our synergy map for male and for a male example and a female example. This is the reason, like, because in civil field there's another common synergy map approach which is called weight cam. The reason that we didn't use it is like it's simply speaking, it's like this approach is not used in the input image. It's used in the feature map. So we can see that this IG K is represents the activation of the feature map. So as we know that the feature map is not the same as the input image. For instance, if we train the model of if we train ImageNet ResNet model on ResNet 50, I think the input size should be 224 by 224 by 3. But the output feature map should be 7 by 7 by 2K, around 2K, I think. So they are not in the same dimension. So they will, they will change the feature map on the attention. They will change the feature map size to fit the input size. So in this way, the sentency is not in pixel resolution. So this is mean differences between our method and this one. And here are our sentence map results across different genders. Here are the average sentence map among males and females. And here are the results for the comparisons between CN patients and CI patients. And here are some comparisons between our approach, our sentence approach, with some other latest sentence map approach on lineage prediction determining. So we can see that for the remaining three, their resolution is relatively high, not relatively high, but higher than ours. Our is only 1 millimeter, but for the remaining, they have like 5, 11, and 32. So their approach is slightly different with ours. All of them are using an approach called holding out. Holding out is approach is like, let me show you example over here. So firstly, they train the model based on the MRI over here and get them a, and after that, they cut the MRI into several different regions or several different blocks, and they holding out one block and put it back to this pre-trained model to see the differences between these two MAE. If this two MAE has a larger distance, it means that this part has a higher sensitivity value. Otherwise, they will have a very low sensitivity value. So, but the limitation is like they have two limitations. One is like because they need to hold out this block one by one. One by one means that they will actually execute the code for multiple times, for many times, I mean. But and also the resolution is only 11 cube. They cannot do things in 1 millimeter. So this is a two main limitations over here. But ours are much better. And after that, as I mentioned, that for CN and MRI, CN and AD patients, their BA are not considered SAA in some cases because they got ill in their brain. So as we know that for CN patients, if we do some cognitive tasks, CN has correlations with the cognitive score. It means that if someone has a good cognitive performance, it means that this guy's CA is younger. So we want to see that whether our model can capture this kind of cognitive change better than CA. So we use two data sets to measure. One is for this data set for CN and this data set for ADNI. And here are two examples for the cognitive task like emotion recognition and famous face recognition. to measure an individual's cognitive stage. And here are our results. It's like where the pink bars are the result for CA, and the green bars are represent the result for the BA predicted by our model. We can see that in many cognitive tasks, our model had a significantly higher. The bar with the dark margin means significant. So we have significant differences and significantly higher with CA. So it means that our model can better capture the cognitive change rather than CA. So it's a good tool to to detect someone who will suffer the AD and MCI in early stage. And that's it. That's it all for our work. And for the future work, we would like to estimate the longitudinal BA change among longitudinal MRIs, because currently there's no model in this direction. Because the reason that we would like to analyze the longitudinal MRI in the future is like we want to analyze whether individual is getting older faster or getting older slower. If it's getting older faster, it's a dangerous sign, and it's kind of an early sign for Alzheimer's disease and AD. Okay, that's it. That's all my presentation today. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a captivating presentation. You did really
Thank you so much.
Are there any questions from the audience? If not, then thank you very much for sharing your work with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye. Have a nice day. Bye.
Finished, concluded. Thank you for joining us.